The American bald eagle is one of the best known and most beloved species of wildlife we have in North America. Indeed, in 1782, we selected this bird to be the very symbol of the United States because of its beauty, its strength, its fierce loyalty to its family, and its fierce defense of its territory. It represented what we thought about ourselves as a country. Unfortunately, since that time, we haven't been that kind to the bald eagle. We've hunted it, trapped it, poisoned it, and driven it to the brink of extinction. But the bald eagle became one of our most successful conservation success stories. The bald eagle was brought back from the brink, removed from the endangered status, removed from the threatened status, and today the populations are growing nationwide. Unfortunately, that growing population is moving into new habitat, and that's causing new problems. The bald eagle was once found all over North America. Their primary habitat was near large bodies of water, tidal rivers, areas like the Chesapeake Bay, the Great Lakes, and even our coastlines. That's because their primary food source is fish. And given their choice, that's what they would eat. Unfortunately, that habitat was also attractive to humans, and our farms, our fields, our cities have all really been concentrated in what was once eagle habitat. Unfortunately, the eagle was also seen as a threat to humans, particularly on farms, because they're predatory. And for a long time in this country, all predators were considered bad animals. They were shot, they were trapped, they were poisoned. And ultimately, the thing that drove the bald eagle to the brink of extinction was the proliferation of the chemical DDT. This was a broad-spectrum insecticide that was considered a miracle by farmers because it killed all sorts of agricultural pests and indeed all sorts of insects that carried human disease. Unfortunately, it also killed bald eagles, peregrine falcons, brown pelicans, and a wide array of other wildlife. It built up in the environment, and eventually in the end-stage predators, the pesticide concentrated and prevented them from reproducing. Well, in 1972, we banned DDT from all uses in the United States, not because of its impact on eagles, but because of its impact on humans. In 1972, DDT was found in 100% of the tissue samples taken by the National Institute of Health. The bald eagle population took a while, but eventually it recovered, and the bald eagle has become one of our greatest conservation success stories. Here in Virginia, we were down to as few as 30 nesting pairs in the early 1970s. Today, we really don't even know how many we've got. Somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 pairs of eagles are nesting across the state. Unfortunately, as the population came back, there wasn't enough habitat for all of those eagles. And eagles are now moving further west, away from the bodies of water along the East Coast, and further south, away from the Great Lakes and the big rivers and streams of the central United States. As they move into habitat that is not prime and without large bodies of water, they no longer have a fish supply.
Wildlife Center, Virginia, this is Maggie. Can I help you?
Hey Maggie, it's Marley, the raptor rehabilitator down in Suffolk. I admitted a bald eagle yesterday and it's looking a little rough, and I'm suspecting lead poisoning.
Oh, hey, Marley. So you have an eagle to send up to us?
Yeah, it would be good to send this eagle to you guys so he could be tested for lead. We've been seeing a lot of these cases recently.
Yeah, so you're not seeing any physical signs of trauma, you're just suspicious that it's lead?
Yeah, we took a look at it. He looks fine on the outside, he just looks really sluggish and not doing too well.
Okay, do you have a transporter already set up for that eagle?
Yes, we do. We should be there between 3 to 4 hours.
Okay, we'll see you later, and send any information you have about the origins of that animal along with it, okay?
Paperwork will be included.
Great, thanks so much. Bye.
As eagles have been forced out of the areas where it was once considered primary habitat, where they could eat fish, they're now having to resort to other types of food, like roadkill, which unfortunately puts them in harm's way, being hit by cars or trucks. And today we see that with increasing frequency. Another source of food, they're finding food on landfills or in public dumps where all sorts of toxic and foreign substances are getting into their bodies and taking a toll. The eagles that are moving inland and scavenging the remains left in the field by hunters are picking up what is now becoming one of the most deadly substances affecting their numbers, and that is lead. Fragments of bullets and shot left in the remains of animals or carcasses that are in the field after the hunters have gone. The eagles will scavenge them, whether they are the internal organs from a deer or an elk or a bear, whether they are nuisance animals like a groundhog or a marmot that's been left in the field with bullet fragments in it, or simply animals that hunters have shot and have been unable to find, and they just couldn't recover the animal. When the eagles find those, they'll eat whatever they can, including tiny shards of lead, and each one of those shards is a toxic time bomb.
Lead is still a high risk for our national bird in the United States, bald eagles. Unfortunately, because of spent lead ammunition, that during hunting season, the hunter goes out there, shoots the prey with a lead bullet. Once that lead bullet hits the prey, goes inside, and unfortunately it gets shattered, and those little fragments goes in different parts of the guts, the muscle, and the viscera. Most of the hunters will dress the prey or the deer in the field and will leave the gut pile. Most of the scavenger species, like bald eagles, will like that free meal out there in the wild. But they will consume these little fragments of lead, as little as a grain of rice. Once they consume this little fragment of lead, is that it will start getting dissolved in their stomach. It will get absorbed and it will go into the blood. And that will slowly start affecting their red blood cells, their brain, their heart, their muscle. The eagle will start getting weak. It will start getting uncoordinated. It will start getting difficult to breathe. And all of this will make the eagle not to be able sometimes to survive into the wild. Sometimes eagles are lucky enough that they are consuming some of these fragments, but some other things that will make the lead not to get absorbed that quick. And sometimes they will be able to regurgitate or to pass it really quick through their gastrointestinal system and just defecate it. And in those cases, they just absorb little amounts of lead that will expose them chronically to little amounts that will accumulate the lead in their bones and in their liver. But as we know, the same as in humans, no lead is safe lead. People find these eagles that are weak, that have weak reflexes, that cannot fly away, and that they can literally not breathe. And I can tell you that more than half of the bald eagles that we receive here are positive for lead. First, we treat them here giving supportive care. That means making sure that their body will be able to continue fighting, continue being able to survive, so we give fluids and nutritional support. But we give also medications that will be able to bind the lead or chelate the lead and will allow the kidneys to excrete or urinate that lead.
Wildlife Center, Virginia, this is Maggie. Can I help you?
Yeah, I live in Albemarle County, and I was driving, and I'm pretty sure I just hit an eagle. It's on the side of the road, and it's not moving, and I'm not sure what to do.
Okay, is it flailing around a lot or is it completely still?
It's like moving its head around, but it's not flailing. It's moving, but it's not still.
Okay, well, eagles are quite strong and powerful birds, so I don't want you to try to grab that bird yourself. I'm going to make some calls to some of our volunteers who may be able to come out and help you, okay?
Okay, thank you. Should I stay here or should I leave?
What, are you on a main road or is it safe for you to stay pulled over?
It's a back road, and I'm pulled over, and I should be fine.
Okay, can you give me your name and contact information so I can have a transporter call you to help?
The good news is the bald eagle population is increasing. The bad news is eagles are today facing threats that they didn't face before. They're having to move into new habitat for which they're not ideally suited. And in those new habitats, they are facing new problems from environmental toxins and from threats for which they're just not prepared. Clearly, hunters can eliminate the lead poisoning threat by voluntarily switching to non-lead ammunition. All of us, whether farmers or homeowners, can reduce the threat of pesticides that still remains by simply reading and following label directions and being mindful that more is not better when it comes to the use of pesticides. And the number of birds being killed by cars and trucks, we can even address that by something as simple as deciding not to litter. Imagine yourself driving down the road, eating an apple. You've got the apple core at the end of your snack. What are you going to do with it? You can put it in the floor of the car in a litter bag, but too many people think, I'm going to throw it out so some animal can finish it. Push the button, down goes the window, out goes the apple core onto the side of the road. And indeed, a lot of animals are drawn to it. But suppose the animal drawn to your apple core is coming from the other side of the road. What have you just done? You've just lured that animal into harm's way. And maybe that animal is the first to be killed by a car. And then that animal's body becomes a lure, an attractant, a food source for bald eagles. Something as simple as deciding not to litter can literally save the life of a bald eagle.
Another reason we see bald eagles here at the Wildlife Center of Virginia is because they get hit by car. And there is multiple reasons why they can get hit by car. One reason can be those ones that are chronically intoxicated or poisoned with lead because their reflexes and their brain is not working properly. So they're a little bit dull or like they were like a little bit drunk. So when they are flying, the reflex is not well coordinated or they're not fast enough to avoid a car. In those cases, we receive them here at the Wildlife Center of Virginia, and the first thing we do is making sure that once they get hit by a car, that their face, their beak, and the eyes are in adequate condition. Sometimes they get hit in the face and they don't have adequate vision. Their eyes suffer intensive trauma. But the second most common thing is wing fractures. In those cases, the bones break, and unfortunately, the fractures are so severe that the only way to resolve that fracture is through surgery. We drive an iron pin inside the bone, we put other 2 pins externally, and we connect them to make sure that that bone will heal properly. That process takes around 3 to 4 weeks. During that time, we make sure that that animal has adequate pain control, and we can prevent some of that infection with some antibiotics. We also need to make sure that that animal is having correct function of the wing. So we do physical therapy, making sure that we can extend and rotate the wing. So those muscles are not getting contracted and the eagle is feeling comfortable and those muscles are relaxed and in good function. After the bone is completely healed, we remove those pins and that external fixation. The next process is to move that eagle to a smaller enclosure where it can start stretching those wings. Finally, when the eagle is feeling comfortable, keeping the wings up and stretching them correctly, we move them to a real large place where the eagle can start flying back and forward. Once the eagle is doing that and can find food correctly in that larger enclosure, we start exercising the eagle so it can regain physical condition and stamina the same as it will do in the wild.
As the eagle population began to increase, one of the things that became very popular across the United States was the proliferation of nest cams. High-resolution digital cameras that were mounted in such a way that people could actually watch the nesting behavior of bald eagles. Here in Virginia, it was no exception. We had a nest cam on an eagle nest located in the Norfolk, Virginia Botanical Garden. And that nest cam allowed people to watch generation after generation of eagles be hatched, reared, and go off to the wild. Well, one year, one of the chicks developed a problem that people noticed online. People became more alarmed until they finally notified the state wildlife agency and demanded that someone do something.
Buddy the bald eagle is a pretty famous bird. He was hatched at the Norfolk Botanical Gardens on eagle cam, so people all over the world were watching as his egg was laid, as he hatched, as his parents raised him. But during his first month of life, it became clear that something was wrong. He had a large growth on the left side of his beak. And typically, wildlife cams, the biologists don't interfere. They just let nature take its course. But in Buddy's case, because he was so famous and so well loved, and because this was kind of an unusual health circumstance, they decided to remove him from the nest and bring him here to the Wildlife Center of Virginia for treatment and veterinary care. So Buddy, when he arrived at the center, we were able to diagnose him with avian pox virus, which is a virus that's transmitted between birds. It's likely that Buddy got this from a mosquito bite, and it causes lesions on the unfeathered parts of a bird's body. So their legs, around their eyes, sometimes near their beak. And in Buddy's case, it was near his cere and the top part of his beak. And that lump, that lesion, damaged the growth plate underneath. So his beak grows slowly on the left side and normally on the right, so his beak is crooked. It's permanently crooked. And Buddy spent a couple of years in our care. There's no cure for avian pox virus, but we were able to give him supportive care, and he pulled through, but the damage to his beak was permanent and irreversible. So he was deemed non-releasable, and he became an education animal, an ambassador for his species here at the center. Buddy is the largest bird of prey that I've had the opportunity to work with, and he is a joy and a challenge. He is a very large bird. He is, when he spreads out his wings, he has about a 6-foot wingspan, and that makes it a little bit challenging to work with him. He's also an adult male bald eagle, but it's been really fun and very engaging for both of us to go through this training process together. At this point, I'm Buddy's primary handler and trainer, and I just love working with him. He's a lot of fun.
Thanks to new technology, we now have small transmitters that we can affix to the back of the eagle we're about to release. And because of the solar panel on the tiny little unit, it will use the sun's energy to charge the battery, keep it going, and every 48 hours, it'll make a cell phone call. Quite literally using cellular technology to call home, download a burst of information and data so we can follow the bird as it moves from the place at which it's released to wherever it wants to be. Our followers and supporters and people who are interested in what happens to these birds can actually come to our website and follow these birds through their daily lives. And boy, have they had some adventures. We released one bird on the Chesapeake Bay of Virginia. 2 weeks later, he was in the Maritimes in Canada. 2 weeks after that, back in Virginia. So we know these animals are succeeding in the wild.
Well, the first thing you have to do is capture an eagle, and we do that in one of two ways. We use rocket nets, which are a very large net that's 60 feet by 40 feet. We have 3 rockets on it, and we bait our trap sites with road-killed deer, and we hide in a blind off in the distance, and when an eagle shows up, we detonate the rockets and shoot the net over top of an eagle. Then we can go out and recover the bird from under the net. The other way that we capture the birds is climbing nest trees. We'll actually climb a nest tree, capture the nestlings when they're about 7 to 8 weeks old, lower them to the ground, and then ground crew will take blood samples, band the birds, measure the birds, and then we'll put a transmitter on them. And the way we fit the transmitter, it's backpack style. This is the transmitter. This is basically a sophisticated cell phone. It has a GPS in it. It has a lithium battery that's recharged with this solar panel. And we have very high resolution data. We can get down to the second level. So we can model how these birds use the landscape 2-dimensionally as well as 3-dimensionally, how they use airspace.
Here at the Wildlife Center of Virginia, we get dozens of bald eagles every year, and they come in for a wide variety of reasons. They're hit by cars, they're poisoned, some of them are unfortunately shot. A lot of them are coming in today with injuries sustained in fights with other eagles as the habitat is filling and the birds are competing more vigorously to get those nesting territories. Fortunately, as we treat so many birds, a lot of them are able to return to the wild, and there's just nothing as spectacular as being able to release a bald eagle and see it go free again to fulfill its destiny in the wild. The eagle we released today had been seriously injured as a result of an automobile impact. She was almost certainly eating roadkill, and along came a speeding automobile, and that really doesn't bode well for the eagle. She had massive trauma to soft tissue of her chest and body, internal injuries, bruising to her lungs, a lot of fluid in her chest cavity. So when she came in, we were not at all sure she was going to survive. But I can tell you, this was one tough bird. She was a fighter from day one, and she did recover. We managed to keep her in captivity for 5 months, providing her with food, shelter, and indeed simply the time to recover. Today, when we released her, she was strong, she flew well, she was home, and she did all the normal eagle stuff, just as we could only hope for. We got to share that release today with several hundred people. And in our home community, and actually anywhere across this part of the country, we have pockets of very, very loyal and staunch supporters. The Wildlife Center of Virginia is located in the state of Virginia, but our support comes from all 50 states. We have donors and contributors not only in every state of the United States, but in more than a dozen other countries that know us online through our internet video, through our websites, through our television programs, and it's a pleasure to share these experiences with people, especially when we get to share it live. 1, 2, 3. The bald eagle is not only the symbol of the United States, the history of the bald eagle really is emblematic of the conservation of all wildlife. We've learned through our experience bringing the bald eagle back from extinction that little things really do matter, and each and every one of us has the capacity to make a difference in the decisions that we make every day. For example, if you're using pesticides or any type of insect killers or poisons or even fertilizers around your home, your garden, your farm, or your business, read and follow the label directions. In too many cases, our attitude is more is better. But when it comes to toxins in the environment, more is bad. Little things like making the decision to reduce your waste stream, the amount of products you throw away. Eagles are facing challenges as they feed on landfills and dumps. They're ingesting things that kill them. The more we can keep out of that waste stream, the less of a threat there will be. If you are a hunter or you have hunters in your circle of friends or your family, encourage the switch to non-lead ammunition. Make the change and encourage others to do the same. Lead poisoning in eagles is an entirely preventable problem. And even something as simple as littering can make a difference for eagles. By throwing an apple core onto the side of the road, you may be attracting an animal to the side of the road that will be killed by a car or a truck. That carcass in return will become roadkill that attracts eagles, putting them in harm's way. As each of us considers something as grand as an eagle or something as insignificant as an apple core, we need to be mindful that our daily decisions and our personal behavior really does make a difference.